there, folks, and welcome back to the Game Buzz, the weekly podcast from us here at dealsprone.com, where we dive feet first into the hottest news of the week. I'm Matt Gardner, and I'm joined once again by Carl Phillips.
Hello.
Hello. And by Jonathan Lester.
If you run me offline, you might get better performance.
Every week. What was that?
Well, you know, the big news story that Assassin's Creed Unity isn't broken, you've just got to run it offline. Says Ubisoft. Just run it offline, it's fine. Except it isn't, because Digital Foundry say it isn't. How did you not get that, Matt?
I literally thought it was a quote from someone. I was like, what's that fucking quote from? I don't know what that's a quote from. Oh, God. And then I pooed myself.
Nice.
That's very gross. But also kind of what Assassin's Creed Unity is doing itself as well. So it's all very topical.
Exactly, right? Like, Ubisoft, I think, let's start here, because, John, you ran the headline for the morning papers yesterday was basically everything is broken. And Ubisoft really shat the bed this week. I mean, well, has there been a week where they haven't, actually, in the last 6 months? I'm not sure I can remember. But, yeah, they've made some spectacular cock-ups here.
Yeah, they have. Well, you've got to remember, though, that the Assassin's Creed itself is that nothing is true, everything is permitted. So by that logic, they can do whatever they want and release broken games, and that's totally fine. They're just living the creed. I almost respect them for
that. Almost operative word there. And by almost, No, not at all. Let's just recap what happened here. So Assassin's Creed Unity, one of the biggest games of the year, the biggest quite possibly for Ubisoft, embargoed up the bum until 5 p.m. GMT on American release day. So people were already talking about the game, but press couldn't for reasons. Although we may have been a bit naughty in that regard. But then, quite frankly, people needed to know they could go out and buy the game, and the game was broken. And Ubisoft didn't issue an apology. There was a day one patch which barely fixed anything. They have since come out and said, oh yeah, there are these things that are broken. They haven't really apologized or admitted that that's actually their fault. It's been a case of, oh, we've heard that the frame rate is shit. We've heard all these things and we're trying. We might be trying. They've apparently, according to Polygon, said that they're going to sort of change their approach to reviews and embargoes and stuff like that. I believe that when I see it. And yeah, it's been a shitter of a week for Assassin's Creed Unity and for Ubisoft in general, really.
But they brought it on themselves. They brought it on themselves because the game doesn't work. Because they released a game that on the disc, you put the disc in and it doesn't work. It's got all these performance problems. It's got all these hilarious glitches. Lots of PC gamers are saying that if you've got a decent rig and you really max it out, actually you can get some really good performance and great visuals out of it. And no one's denying that it's a beautiful looking game. But they did themselves no favors. This whole time they've been saying, oh yeah, we've been working on this for 4 years. Yeah, right, you have. We've been working on this for 4 years with all of these teams. It's going to be great. We're putting out 2 games a year, not including like tie-ins on other platforms, but you can be guaranteed of quality. It's fine. We're not oversaturating our own marketplace. We're not causing like Assassin's Creed malaise. It's totally fine. Then, they had this whole Steam problem, which put them, this whole sort of taking their games off Steam issue that really put these games right in the crosshairs. And then it turns out that the game was broken and that they'd knowingly released a game that didn't work because they could have tested this. There's no getting around the fact that they could have just got the gold disc, one of the gold discs they have knocking around, stuck it in a console and tried it. They must have done. Someone must have done that. And they went ahead and released it anyway. And it's just yet another game this year that, despite like being a big marquee release, despite having loads of time to prepare, sometimes even despite being delayed, has still suffered from massive problems at launch.
Yeah, it's true. And it's interesting actually that as we found out today, that because I asked the question, where is the quality control here? What's been going on? And it turns out that Ubisoft can't even spell quality control.
Yeah, I saw that in Assassin's Creed Rogue. Apparently, the head of their worldwide
The worldwide
quality assurance just can't spell.
Just what are you doing, Ubisoft? And the thing is, like Unity is a game that apparently, purportedly, allegedly was in development or has been in development for 3 years. And well, I asked this question on site and then wrote a big article on it. Is Ubisoft becoming the new EA? Because this sounds awfully familiar to Battlefield 4. I mean, you release one of your flagship titles, it's buggy as hell, it takes you ages to fix. This is Ubisoft, and the thing is, yeah, as you say, John, they've been making anti-consumer decisions across the board. They've been royally dicking over their customers, and they've just had absolutely, like, what's the opposite of the gift of the gab? What's like the matric effect? Like just an utter shambles.
Yeah, deal with it. Hashtag deal with it.
Hashtag deal with it.
It's the opposite of that.
the sort of like nadir in terms of communication. That's where Ubisoft have been. Are they turning into EA?
Well, here's the thing. They're not the new EA. They're not turning into the new EA. They are turning into the old EA. They are turning into the EA in those bad, dark old days when EA were out to grab every scrap of money they could, regardless of who they had to dig over and how many ridiculous anti-consumer practices they had to put into effect. We're talking about good old-fashioned, clawing, horrific, clunky, dinosaur old EA. But EA aren't doing that anymore. Like, new EA are giving away free games. They have a platform that's actually quite convenient and has great download speeds, although admittedly I think it still scans our hard drives. I'm not sure what their stance on that anymore. I still think they're allowed to scan our hard drives if they want. But, you know, they're giving away stuff. They're fixing their games. They finally got around to fixing Battlefield 4, and more to the point, they delayed Hardline. They delayed their big Battlefield game of this year by several months based on feedback that they got from holding a massive consumer beta. Ubisoft aren't turning into new EA. They're turning into bad old EA, and not even EA wants to be them anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Like Origin's been a great little service. I mean, I say that because I can ignore it. That's what I want from that sort of client. You know, and the only time it really sort of impinges upon my attention is when it's going, oh, have this free game. And it's not shit free games. It's freaking PopCap games, and PopCap are great. Whereas Uplay, Upplay, whatever, is just it's the tits, it's the worst. And yeah, Ubisoft just making terrible decisions across the board. Although apparently some of the first wave of Far Cry 4 reviews have come out. They've all said it's great. So it'll be interesting to see if it is in fact great, and if Sony manages to sort of keep the PlayStation Network up when it rolls around to Far Cry 4's release date, sort of next Tuesday. But this week's been horrible for Ubisoft. Just absolutely horrible. And I think like a lot of the feedback has been has actually had a knock-on effect for people cancelling orders for their games. For things like Far Cry 4. It's gonna be interesting to see if actually that turns around. For things like the crew, because obviously like stability, netcode, you don't want bugs in anywhere close to the crew, that they've run betas for that. So it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to their releases across the rest of the winter. But
we've already seen how the stock market responded.
Yeah.
Their stocks went down 12% just in the few hours following the embargo retiring for Assassin's Creed Unity. Can I just point out as well, I think we need to just make it very clear that I'm okay with launch day embargoes, but embargoes that go beyond the moment when a game launches and like later into the day or even later into that week are complete bullshit.
Yep.
Can I just point that out? I'm kind of maybe all right with the idea of a game saying no one gets to review it until like they did with Destiny. I'm all right with that in theory, but even so, if a company wants to do that, they should also ethically not try and incentivize customers to pre-order it. Would just be, that's been annoying me recently. It's Ubisoft's been saying, oh well, Like that statement you said earlier when they said they were changing the way they were, looking at reviews. They said, oh, well, with all these games having these online connected experiences like Destiny and The Crew and Assassin's Creed Unity, the way we have to review games is changing. And I'm there thinking, like, who's changing it, Ubisoft? Whose fault is that? It was you putting these things in the game. It's you who wanted to do this. So, like, we're totally fine with the idea of reviewing games down the line, reviewing games after launch, really taking our time to really get to grips with the consumer netcode. But, like, you guys have to play ball as well. Don't incentivize people to pre-order it if that's the case.
Yeah, and I think, like, you're absolutely right. Like, launch day embargoes, I have no problem with that at all. But yeah, you can't, when people are already talking about the game, having like the press sort of bound and gagged in the shed, like that's not okay. That's a metaphor, by the way.
No, not bound and gagged. Yeah, bound and gagged in the shed while people are going like over to the game store on their way to work.
Yeah,
buying it.
That is a metaphor. Ubisoft don't kidnap journalists and like tie them up and stick them in sheds in the south of France. That's not what happens.
That was some interesting. Yeah, you were super defensive about that though. Like, and that was some interesting extraneous detail. I mean, no one brought up Cole. Did you bring up the south of France?
I did not bring up the south of France.
I didn't bring up. I mean, you volunteered that information by yourself. I mean. This is
very specific.
This could be a bigger scandal.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might have just
Shedgate.
Shedgate.
Oh God! Oh, what have I done? I didn't ask for this. But yeah, Ubisoft, just no. Just treat your customers with respect. Don't try and pull the wool over anyone's eyes, and don't release a game when you know damn well that it's not up to scratch. And this is the thing. I want to talk a little bit more broadly about this because there are a number of people actually kind of almost not necessarily defending Ubisoft, but kind of playing down the whole controversy, saying, okay, look, like we have the means and ways to patch games these days. Like it's not a big deal. Remember back in the day when games were released with bugs and that was it. That was your lot. That was you were done. You just have to deal with it. # deal with it. We have it so much better now. Like people can patch things in and all that sort of stuff. And there have been a few other occasions of this. Like we're going to talk about the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, we are.
And we're going to get on to the WoW expansion as well. But like more broadly, is it okay? Is it okay to write these problems off and just say, well, they're going to patch them in? Because actually, that's what companies are doing. And I think like someone has to go, wait, hang on a second. Just because you can patch games after release doesn't mean that you should freaking release broken games.
Well, I think you just said it right there. The fact is that the ability to patch games on all platforms is a great concept. I mean, who could dislike that concept I'm saying the word concept a lot, on a conceptual level. It's great. On blue sky thinking, on paper, paradigm shifting. But it's one of those things that a lot of big companies have just found a way to abuse and twist it into something really quite terrible, and actually I'd argue quite damaging to the entire industry as a whole, because the fact that you can patch a game post-release is good. Obviously, the problem is that it's so easy now for big games publishers to knowingly release a broken game. We see this every year. We saw this as far back as like Assassin's Creed 3. And any number, I'm not just singling out Ubisoft here, any number of games that literally released broken, like The Evil Within, for example, had terrible performance and like running on the disc, it was pretty awful until they released a huge day one patch for it. Big publishers know that they can just release the game that's on disc that's completely, if not broken, then not up to snuff, either technically or with loads of bugs, with loads of problems, and then issue the magical day one patch. Release it anyway, patch it later. Why not? They can do it, so they will do it. And because they've set themselves such insane deadlines, and because so many companies, like, again, bringing back Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed, set themselves these insane annual deadlines where they have to bring out not just one game in a franchise, but 2 games in a franchise per year, that they almost have to do this. And when given the option, when given an option between putting in loads and loads and loads of extra effort and loads of extra money into guaranteeing that a game works brilliantly and will only need a few cosmetic little tweaks based on feedback, versus just, there, release what you got, we'll patch it later. Obviously, they're going to do the latter, and it's messed up. The whole practice is, it's just deeply damaging, and it's deeply shameful. Especially, I mean, for people who maybe don't have great internet and, you know, maybe want to play their game without patching it up. I don't know. It annoys me.
It strikes me that this is actually a console issue, because because to look at things on PC where it's been easy to patch things for years, we have things like early access now, and we have things like playable, payable as well, alphas and betas. So companies can actually, they don't always do this, and this is something we've long harped on about, that companies need to be upfront and transparent and communicate this. But all of the tools are there to be able to do that, to say, okay, look, this is pre-release, but you can buy into this right now. It's buggy as shit, but actually help us out with our feedback. That'll be great. And yeah, people can buy in. They get the game at whatever state it's in, and as long as the communication's there, and there are obviously people that flout this, but there are companies and development studios and publishers that do this very well as well. Like, you can be taken on that journey, and it doesn't matter necessarily, because everyone knows where they stand. You're not dropping money for the premium product. You know when you buy in that it's at an alpha or a beta stage, or at least you hope you know. But there seems to be, but there's an understanding there in, like, the sort of PC market that actually you can do that. And
the reason you can do that is because the games cost less. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a problem on PC. I remember back to the days when Paradox Interactive literally did no QA, for example, and would release. I remember that they released King Arthur 2. That was it, King Arthur 2, the role-playing war game. Didn't work at all. They hadn't tested it at all. It would not work. They then brought out another patch, which broke it even harder. Like, it killed all the scripting flags even. And then they spent, a couple of weeks just because they could release a game, because it was so easy to release a game on digital platforms, and then patch it up later. That's exactly what they did. But they responded to feedback, and now their QA is generally pretty good. And they hold big betas for stuff, and they do their best, even with huge scale games, to make sure now that the games work. But we're okay with the PC experience, because we're okay with the patch culture on PC experience, because clients like Steam make it easy, and we pay less. They cost less money.
And it has gotten better as well. I mean, like communities have clamored for improvements in that regard, and that sort of, companies, it's kind of quicker for them to respond and evolve in that respect. But I'm sorry, I agree with you.
Yeah, but I think it's like the joy of consoles once used to be that, you could like faff about with your PC and faff about with drivers, download stuff and download patches and play a game on PC, but you get a console game and you just stick it in the drive and play it. And no, now there's always a day one patch, and then there's always performance improvements, and that's there because I don't know. I genuinely think that at some point Microsoft and Sony need to get out the white flags, meet in neutral ground, and have a bit of a chat about how certification works. Because right now we have a system where lots of smaller studios get punished or get the games rejected for not jumping through really pedantic hoops, like, oh no, I didn't put a screen in that makes you press start at the beginning of the game to register the controller. Game failed. Assassin's Creed 3, totally broken. Assassin's Creed Unity, broken. Fine, release it, fine. We trust you that there'll be a day one patch. Broken. The system is broken.
It's not good. It's not good. And it hasn't just been Ubisoft. We've seen difficulties. We've seen launch difficulties for a couple of things this week. We mentioned Halo. What's going on there?
Oh, Halo. Now, here's the thing. Oh, Halo. The thing about Halo is that I find this kind of amusing and kind of deeply annoying. I refused to give Halo a score when the review embargo expired, because I hadn't been able to test out the matchmaking. Over the weekend, I was then able to test out the matchmaking, which worked fine. I got in a bunch of pugs. It was cool. I played some really great matches. It was really sweet. It was the like cherry on the cake, and I brought out a perfect score because the product that I'd reviewed in the state that it was in was worth it, deserved it. And unfortunately, they then released the game, and the matchmaking just died, completely rolled over and died. So now we're in a state where 343 are desperately scrambling to get this working. They've reduced the number of game type hoppers, which is super annoying because they've taken SWAT out of the rotation. Oh, SWAT is the king. They need to get SWAT back in there ASAP, but they have issued a very contrite apology. In stark comparison with EA and Ubisoft, they were right off the mark with a "you deserve better. We really cocked this up. We're really sorry. We will fix this. We promise you we will fix this." And again, that's a marketing ploy, but it's also well appreciated. But I'm not so angry. The thing is, this is a little double standard, but I'm not so angry about Halo as I am with the likes of Unity and because I came down really hard on Drive Club as well. And I'm not quite as angry and I'm not quite as indignant as I am about Halo because it's got so much quality content there, even without the matchmaking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's 4 brilliant, or should I say there's 3 1/3 brilliant campaigns there if when you factor in Halo 2's sort of weaker levels. So there's 3 1/3 great campaigns there. We're talking about, at an absolute minimum, 22 hours to get through those on Heroic or above. More likely for most people, they'll spend about 8 hours a piece because the joy of Halo is trying out new things, experimenting, and ramping mongoose off crazy ramps onto the back of scarabs. Yes, I have done that. I'll need to put the video up for that. Actually, I was really proud of that. But there's so much great content there, and custom games that you can set up. They all work fine, and all the extras, and Halo Nightfall, and all the secrets and Easter eggs, and the fact that the Halo franchise is one of the most infinitely replayable first-person shooter experiences ever released. So that's why I haven't been sort of swinging the hammer on site about Halo MCC. You've seen some of our articles saying this is ridiculous in terms of Drive Club, and then in terms of Halo, I'm saying, hey, here's some fun stuff to do while you wait for the matchmaking. That's why the disparity's there. Halo has bought itself a few days of grace for me. But the gloves will come off next week if they haven't sorted this out, or we see significant improvements over the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And yeah, I mean that's the thing though. You're right. It's such a comprehensive content package that there are hours and hours and hours of things to lose yourself in while this gets fixed. And actually, if you haven't checked it out already, do hit up John's things to do while you wait for Halo's matchmaking to be fixed, because it's awesome. But this is all in stark contrast, obviously, to sort of MMOs and that kind of sphere. And I kind of want to just do an even more broad comparison now, because we've had an MMO kind of release this past week. It got affected. Carl, tell us about Draenor. Tell us about the troubles that have been affecting that game.
There's been the big news that's come out today, which is the whole DDoS on the US servers, which obviously aren't going to help matters. But the launch day, I mean, I don't think Blizzard has managed a perfect launch at all for any of the expansions, which is surprising. 10 years of experience and they haven't managed to do it. But I got in when the servers were switched on at 11 o'clock, and there were hundreds of players around me, and it was fantastic to see so many people there ready for this moment. And they go towards the person that's going to activate the first quest to take them through the portal to Draenor, and he's not there. He's not there because the servers basically have gone absolutely nuts, and because it's no longer a case of if you're on one server, that's it. You've just got your players' servers, and so your players on that server, and that's it. Now there's the whole sort of kind of mega server sort of things where all players are kind of seeing each other, they're known as battle groups. So as a result, loads of players were there going, where the hell's Khadgar? Where I'm meant to speak to Khadgar. Where's Khadgar? People were like saying, want to buy Khadgar sort of thing. We'll give you all my gold. And there were hundreds of players there. And for about 20 minutes, nobody could do anything. And then the servers died. Nobody could log on. I think basically Blizzard were kind of like, yep, we kind of need to fix this. So for 40 minutes, people can get on to play. Then when we got on, got through the portal, the cutscenes happened. It looks absolutely amazing. It's like, oh my god, look at all those Iron Horde down there. And you get there and it's laggy as hell. Like really, really bad. And then that's fine because you could just about complete the first quest. But the second quest, where you have to touch a stone to free these sort of like spirits that have been captured. The problem is that only one player could do it at a time. And I get to the stone and there are probably over 100 players stood around it trying to all click at the same time with lag, may I mention. So nobody is actually able to complete this mission at all. They just stood around it. People are griefing it by spawning in giant ogres to stand over the top and start dancing. So of course people are raging out, and it's just like I just gave up. I just went, you know what? I'll wait until the morning. I'll set my alarm. I'll get up in the morning and try it out. And yeah, apparently this lasted for quite some time. It eventually did get itself sorted, and it wasn't universal across all servers. But it's interesting to see because they had this beta for quite some time for Warlords of Draenor, and they didn't factor in server load. Like the content has been tested and gone through many times by many players, but the fact that they didn't factor that in is strange, really, because it's not just Warlords of Draenor. You know, WildStar had a very similar situation. I think the Secret World did as well. I think Guild Wars 2 actually managed it okay, and when you think about it, out of all of the MMO experiences that we've had over the last sort of like year or two, Destiny was the smoothest. It was the smoothest, guys.
It
Destiny.
really was.
And it's just right. I mean, admittingly, things are kind of getting back to normal with Warlords now. They have fixed it. There was actually one last sort of anecdote to say. There's a new feature called Garrisons where you can build up your own base, and that's phased out from the rest of the world so that you can decide where you put down your own buildings. Except there was a bug, again, due to server load, where everybody loaded up in a generic town centre, and there were hundreds of players who could not move. They were just all there chatting to each other, just going, oh, so how would you get out? Trying to share sort of experiences, trying to give advice how to get out, because a few people were managing to get through to their garrison. But I've actually just got a screenshot of loads of people just stood around in the town centre, and all I had in my head was the Too Many Cooks theme. It's just going on. It's just, I just went, oh, this is just absolutely insane. And it's a shame because it happened yesterday during peak time, and I wonder whether they fixed it for today. But it is strange that, like I say, that they haven't sorted out server load. That's the big issue in terms of MMOs. Although I will say again, WildStar got patched earlier this week, and there was an issue where people were taking advantage of an exploit that got patched in with that update, and they're now scrambling to get that fixed. And I wonder why they didn't come across that. Like you say, it's all about quality assurance. And yes, okay, Carbine have fired a whole bunch of people, so perhaps they're a little light on staff. But it's puzzling that they managed to let that through.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned Destiny there and how it was incredibly smooth. Bungie were, for all of Destiny's faults, Bungie were very, very good at sort of making sure they tested everything, and there were tests galore. Like we had the alpha, we had the beta.
Yeah.
Like they stressed their systems, and they did their due diligence, right? And the thing is, like, I know we kind of expect a certain degree of insanity at the start of an MMO kind of launch. What I want to know is that something that, as we have more connected features in games, and as we have more multiplayer features and online features in games, and they are games that are becoming more connected and more sort of leaning on online features more and more and more. Is that something that we've just got to get used to? Is it something we should kind of fight against in terms of QA, in terms of saying, like, you've got to really sort these things out for launch, and if they're not sorted, call it a beta, call it a soft release. Yeah, like what are your guys' thoughts on that? Because at the moment in the sort of the MMO sphere, it's almost accepted that you're going to have some difficulties in the first week or two, right? And that's why we don't review things until things have settled down a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different thing with MMOs, though, isn't it? Because on the basis that they tend to be much larger experiences, there's more players. That in theory, there's more things that can go wrong. Whereas stuff like Assassin's Creed, it's a very focused experience. And yes, okay, you can have co-op, but it's very focused. So you would expect that they'd be able to kind of like see all the sort of like the variations and alternative things that people could get up to, in theory. But I think yes, in that regard, in terms of more focused experiences, yes, it should be good to go out of the box as soon as it's there, I would say.
I actually absolutely agree with you. Quite frankly, like if all of Assassin's Creed problems had been in terms of like the netcode and the co-op stuff, which actually works very, very well, I think that could have been forgiven. And that's kind of why, in a way, sort of we gave Drive Club some leeway in terms of the review. Like that's kind of why, in a way, we're giving Halo Master Chief Collection the benefit of the doubt for the time being. Also because it's just ridiculously awesome and has so much offline content to experience.
This will not stand, though. There will come a point.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
I have to bring the hammer down unless 343 gets their act together.
But I think there is no excuse for offline bugginess at launch. I just don't see that.
And I'd go one step further. I mean, it's been a while since I brought the rain like properly. I think I might have to rain on a parade here, but I feel like this is actually quite a dangerous situation because games cost an absolute bomb these days. Yeah, you can get deals, but the fact is that publishers are trying to push the price per user above recommended retail prices with stuff like season passes, microtransactions, pre-order incentives, and all those sort of little extras that they try to get you to buy. Games have rarely been so expensive. Quality assurance is a major low we're in right now, when not only have we got games on Steam, not even on early access releasing basically broken, and indie games releasing broken, but also when we've got big games from massive publishers with huge QA departments releasing broken with a vague promise that they'll patch it up later. Quality assurance is almost at an all-time low. And factor that in with the fact that the market is getting increasingly saturated. Ubisoft putting out 2 Assassin's Creed titles a year, plus all the extras, and all of these things, when you combine all of these things, you can reach a really dangerous critical mass, because every time all of these things damage the reputation of an industry, all of these things just put a little bit of extra weight and a little bit of extra annoyance on the consumer. And the last time all 3 of these things coalesced into one big critical mass was in 1983.
Yep.
And when that happened, the video game console industry literally died. And tellingly, only Nintendo, who ruled the industry with an iron fist, certifying pretty much every line of code in every game they were sent and only allowing it onto their platform and giving it their seal of approval, if it was good enough, only they were able to save it by quality control. And I think that, now, don't get me wrong, we are currently benefiting from the fact that the new consoles have come out, they're all selling well, and video games as a concept are too big to fail. I'm not saying that there's going to be a big apocalyptic crash, but what I am saying is that as far as consoles are concerned, with all the massive sort of competition as well from other factors and from the growing tablet and mobile, all the different sort of competitors and rivals that consoles didn't face in years past, I think companies now need to sort themselves out. The companies that are big enough to delay games, if they have to, the companies that are big enough to absorb some losses by doing extra QA, they need to be sorting their act out now, or they'll only have themselves to blame when consumers finally have enough.
I think I'd actually, now you brought that up, it's just reminded me of a theory I came up with the other day when I was talking about this. In the case of Ubisoft, you have to think about last year and the fact that they did delay 2 big titles for them, didn't they? They deleted. They should have. They should have delayed. Well, they did delay Watch Dogs and Rayman Legends, didn't they?
Yeah,
they did.
And they both got delayed. And I wonder whether they saw Assassin's Creed Unity when we really shouldn't be releasing this, but if we do another delay, our stock price is going to just plummet. Like, nobody will trust us in terms of getting stuff out on time. They just went, we're going to push through and hope that we can patch it. I wonder whether that was the company line when it came to that. Again, theory, you know, I don't know whether that's necessarily true. It's all rumor and speculation. But yeah, I wonder whether that had a big impact on Unity coming out in the state that it did.
I'm allegedly, hypothetically, completely certain that was the case. Allegedly. Hypothetically,
yes.
And actually, to your point, John, it's worth it. It's like to everyone listening, it's worth noting that if you want a system where the games, you know, do go through a rigorous certification process, are guaranteed to work, and are top notch in terms of quality, buy a Wii U.
Yeah, buy a Wii U or 3DS.
It's like, I mean, yeah, that it's got some of the best games of the year on it, and they all worked straight out of the box, and they fucking amazing. And yeah, Nintendo have still got it in that regard, and it's impossible not to admire them in that regard for sticking to their principles in that space, and it's impossible actually in the light of all of this not to kind of admire EA for delaying, for breaking their annualization of the Battlefield series, and for saying no, we're pushing hardline. And I mean, I haven't spoken to anyone who was like thrilled by the hardline beta, but I've spoken to a lot of people who are thrilled that they've pushed it back and are committed to doing a proper job on it.
Yeah, but at the same time, they had Dragon Age Dragon Age Inquisition to kind of like back that up. And that's actually, so again, a good comparison in terms of EA versus Ubisoft, in the fact that they brought that they've had the reviews out for since the beginning of the week. I think it was just right before the Unity ones, and people are going, hey, yeah, this is really good quality, and people are probably going to go pre-order that over Unity with its whole late review thing. It's just, yeah. But getting back on topic, yes, hardline being delayed, best thing really.
Yeah, they've got everything to prove, and they've got to make sure that and Battlefront are top notch when they launch. Yeah. And you better believe they're going to be doing their best to do so, because they really are not going to want another Battlefield 4 situation again, because they're not going to get a free ride. But yeah, I just think right now, this Christmas, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if we could just draw the line underneath the whole release broken games, patch later policy, and go into next year where all these big, fantastic games are coming out, the stuff we're really looking forward to, and the stuff that many of us were looking forward to even, before this new generation of consoles launched. The likes of Arkham Knight and The Witcher 3 and Bloodborne, some of which were delayed for extra work, like The Witcher. So if we can draw a line under this, and if publishers can just, do some QA and remember that their reputation is kind of important and is kind of on the line, and they can't rely on a big casual market just buying stuff every year just because, to always bring in the cash and to always be there for them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that would be a Christmas miracle, personally.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Dear
I'd also
Santa.
like to play some freaking SWAT 343. Because I've let you off easy, but I'm telling you, I had a great. Oh man, I got into some serious SWAT. Now I can't do any SWAT. I'm getting it. If you're wondering why I'm maybe a bit irritable this week, I haven't had my fix, and I'm gonna get in the shakes a little bit. So sort that.
That's perfectly understandable. SWAT is king, and you need to get it back in there. 343.
Yeah.
So yes, dear Santa, fix this for us. That'd be grand.
Yes.
And Ubisoft stopped releasing broken games. So yeah, that is the Game Buzz for this week. Thank you so much for listening, peeps. If you're listening to this on YouTube, do hit subscribe. We're going to have some video content coming over the next few weeks. Lots of Little Big Planet stuff. So yeah, do stay tuned for that, and do check out John's interview with Sumo Digital if you haven't already. It just gives you the entire lowdown on what to expect from LBP3. But yeah, that's it from us. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch you next time. Cheers, folks.